Hello, welcome to another Real Raw Moment, and today's is entitled When You Are Forced to Prove Your Worth. So, this is really directed to those going through parental alienation, high conflict divorce, custody battles, high conflict custody battles, but it also can apply to pretty much anybody who's had to be in the court system and literally prove who they are. Now, we're not talking criminal court here, we're talking civil and family court, where it's a little bit more nuanced, it's a little softer, it's a little more give and take on each side. But let's talk about the very nature of parental alienation first. And maybe if you're not going through it and you're curious, and I hope you're here, ask questions in the comments below and I'll answer them. But let's talk about what it is and what it does. So, parental alienation is when a child or children are turned against one parent by the other parent, or grandparents on both sides. You can have family members against the targeted person. You can have family members against the other family members. But let's keep it just simple mom and dad. Okay, just mom and dad. Because this is actually where it gets really yucky. No, real technical term, yucky. And it's galling. And I'm going to talk about it here because I want to validate those who are currently have had to and potentially have to dig in and prove their worth. So let's talk about when we become parents, right? Okay, we had sex or we adopted. I'm adopted, so I'm rah adoption, big fan. But let's be blunt. Somehow we received a child. And even if it was in the foster system and you adopted somebody, and not just limiting this to at birth. Now, in the foster system, you actually have to go through so many hoops and prove your worth that you have to prove that you can be a parent, whereas adoptive parents also have to do that. There's qualifiers. I know I've read my own adoption documents, and I see what my parents had to go through in order to get me. It took them a lot of time. It took a lot of years, which is why it's so unbelievable the position I'm in today. But another story for another day, or if you watch my videos, you may already know it. I digress. Let's say that we had a child, we, you, they, us, had a child the old-fashioned way. You had sex, you got pregnant, you had a baby. With a partner hopefully that you loved, who's a part of your life. It wasn't just transactional, that child was conceived out of love and raised in love. And when we become parents, we don't ever think that that's going to end. That cohesiveness, that teamwork, whatever it looks like for you, everybody's family structure is different. There is no right or wrong, right? I think that's the point. One person's way of doing it is not another person's way of doing it. And as long as that child is loved, kept safe from harm, is not abused, nurtured, fed, and clothed, I think that's a good day for that child. That's a lot. It's a lot to keep a little human alive and nurtured and educated and right? Like, let's all parents, no matter where you're at, let's just give ourselves a round of applause. Raising tiny humans is hard, but we do it. And we don't expect that aspect is ever going to change as far as us being parents until it does. And this is where parental alienation comes in. So when you experience PA, it's very oppositional. There are two sides, mom against dad, dad against mom, other extraneous people coming in. But what happens is you immediately, as a targeted person, so not the alienator, the targeted person, like I am, like most of my followers and people that I coach and do groups with are, suddenly you have to prove who you are as a human being, who you are or are not as a parent. You have to validate everything you've ever done. Make no mistake, parental alienation is one of the most aggressive forms of trauma that a parent can experience. And I say this respectfully and with the side note that someone has told me this, actually more than one person, that is harder in many aspects than the passing of a child, because it is active grief. It is constantly going around in circles. And we can talk about that, and if you disagree with that, tell me your story below. I mean no disrespect. This actually does come from conversations with others who have gone through alienation, going through it, and have lost a child, which is an alarming amount of people out there. And they compare and they say, one is harder than the other. So when parental alienation happens, it's very divisive very quickly, and the alienator has the advantage. They do. First of all, possession is 9/10 of the law, so they say. What do they have? Your child. It becomes transactional. Your child becomes currency, and you become the person who's got to prove your worth. You've got to prove that you are a good mother or father, that everything you've done is the right thing. And let's be honest, okay, parents, right? Do we always do the right thing? No, because we're human beings. When we come into having children, unless you've done a massive amount of self-work through therapy on yourself, you come in carrying some baggage from your childhood. It can transfer over to your kids. Now, if it's like, you never let them have bread with the crust cut off, that's your thing, okay. Is that really going to traumatize your child? No. But there are levels of things that can psychologically traumatize your child. When we're forced to start to explain our worth, not only as a parent, but as a human being, it's a position that nobody ever expects to be in. The only time we technically, in my books, have to prove our worth, or try to, is when we're getting a job, a promotion, or applying for school. And applying for school always has tests and stuff that, qualify. Jobs have criteria, often, different things that they test against to see if you're a good fit for the job. And of course, there's qualifiers like your education and stuff for a job. So it's not out there that you go into a job or school scenario and that you need to be on point. You need to advocate for yourself as to why you are a good fit for the program, for the job, for the promotion, whatever it is, right? Majority of people have experienced that in one form or another. Now transfer that anxiety, transfer all of the work you do just for that, and then apply it to proving that you are a good parent. And first of all, what does a good parent mean? Well, I already said it. You take care of your child, you keep them safe, you nurture them, you feed them, you clothe them, you love them, you keep them safe. Safety is a big one on my list. You don't abuse them mentally, physically, or emotionally. You raise them the best that you can, in the best environment that you can, the best way that you can. Been going on for centuries, but parental alienation has not. And suddenly, you're without your children. You are having to go through a court process, which is foreign for most people, and you have to justify your very existence. That's exhausting. And that's what I'm here to say today. It is exhausting and it is foreign. And you have every right to be tired, to be frustrated, to say, I don't wanna anymore. You can even say it's not fair. And parental alienation is not fair. I don't advocate or use the word or terms, it's not fair, or I don't deserve this, because in a lot of those things to me are contextual. Your perception of what's not fair or you don't deserve is different from mine, and that's part of the human experience. But parental alienation has this way of stopping all of that and saying, you, mom or dad, document every single thing you've ever done, and document what you did in this situation 5 years ago, and prove you're a good person. Prove your job employment, your finances, your marital history. I mean, you name it, everything is on the table. And when that happens and you've got this alienator with your child and you're under this swamp of things you have to prove, it is incredibly difficult just to get through that before you can even come up and argue back. I don't like the word fight, although a fight does come. It depends. It can be a fight. So I want to speak to that day. I could go on. It's a very nuanced thing. When you're in parental alienation, high conflict divorce, high conflict custody battles, I mean, first of all, in my mind, the word custody battle should never exist, and it doesn't need to. But that's up to the two parties who are fighting it out and using the children as currency, and that is what it comes down to. But parental alienation is so insidious. It forces you to question who you are. It can bring on an identity crisis. Now, we normally reserve identity crisis for like the 40-year-old male. Sorry, women do this too. A 40-year-old or midlife, which isn't 40 anymore, and the red Porsche or the summer home or something, like that is flashy and is like, for whatever reason, they feel that they need to express themselves in a youthful way. That seems to be, kind of what goes on. And I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and I'm not going to sit here and say, I understand it. But I understand that to a degree, a midlife crisis. I certainly identify the most with having an identity crisis. And here's what it is, an identity crisis. When you, in PA, when you are forced to question everything you've ever done as a parent, you question everything you've ever done as a parent. And then the gaslighting comes in. And then the self-gaslighting comes in. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. We talk about how the other party is gaslighting us in an affidavit or in a court process or an email or a phone call or, dangling our kid in front of us. We don't talk about the self-gaslighting, which is the most dangerous gaslighting of all. Because what can happen in PA is you start to look at everything you've done and you really start to question yourself. Because it hits home to the core. When someone threatens your id, your ego, your identity, there's nothing more taxing as a human than facing your own self. And don't get me wrong, people don't come for me when I say there's nothing more taxing as a human. There's a million things in the world that can tax you as a human. I'm talking within yourself, within your mind, your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, your dreams, your actions, your goals, your heart, your desires. When all of that is called into question, and the very pinnacle of it, your parenting, it's egregious. It's beyond. And it is fucking tiring. And I'm going to swear right there, and I apologize to my Christian and other viewers and followers. I have no other words for it. And what I ask that you do is take a break from it. Take a break from the forced self-examination. Now, we all know here, if you're new here, Natalie loves therapy. I go to therapy every week, and I couldn't imagine my life without it. Self-examination is not a bad thing when it's driven by you, your desires. You want to make a change. You want to discover something. You want to dig into something. You want to be a better person. You want to be a better parent. You want to be a better daughter, son, whatever. That's amazing. That's self-work. I'm here all day long for that. Years long. I don't think I'll ever stop going to therapy, and I've said that before. But when it's forced on you with something that there's something being withheld in order that you're forced to do it, i.e. your children, you cannot see your children until you go through this process. Here in Canada, you can't see your children until you did Section 30. You can't see your children because CAS is involved and they said you're an unfit parent just by looking at you. You can't see your children because the police said so. And let me tell you, I'm going to say right now, alarmingly, the more work I do in PA, I am alarmed by how many PA parents have been arrested unjustly, have falsified reports against them, falsified CAS reports. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And when you're facing any or all of those, identity crisis can happen, and it is exhausting. So first and foremost in this video, it's one of the longer ones I've ever done. First of all, I want to validate you in this. It is real. Your exhaustion is real. Your fear is real. Your sadness, your despair, those are all valid emotions, and I encourage you to write them down, acknowledge them. Don't be afraid of them. Embrace them. Will they pass? Yes. You will get through it. What do I say? You've made it this far, you're going to make it all the way. But it doesn't mean that you're going to make it seamlessly. And take time off. Here's the one thing about the court system that I can say. Generally, even the legal system, it moves slower than we think it's going to. Now, yes, there are emergency motions, there are emergency things, and as PA parents, we become masters of our own files legally. We get to know the law and the processes pretty quickly. There's room to rest. There is room to take a step back and breathe. And it's necessary. You need to do that because no matter what, you cannot keep soldiering on and hope that you have the reserves to withstand the next onslaught all the time. You're human. And here's the other thing in PA. Humanity doesn't seem to matter. There's no room to be human. So I know what I'm saying. I'm saying you're human and there's no room to be human, but let's be honest, you're a human. The law and the legal system does not take that into account. So you need to protect yourself. You need to take the time. You need to nourish yourself. Yeah, self-care, I'll beat that drum too. Whatever that means to you. But most of all, sleep, nourishment, keeping your mental state clear, which means if you can, therapy, a group, get out in nature, walk. And I know we've all heard these things a million times, but they are the small things that will make a big impact and give you the strength and the clarity of mind to objectively look at what you're being asked to do, prove your worth as a parent, take the emotion out and the facts in, and trust yourself and not gaslight yourself. I know you've got this. Comments below. I would love to hear your story. Reach out anytime. And big deep breaths. You are worthy.